Hey artists, it's Monsterpawss. So I'm sure you can tell by the title of this video that I'm about to spill the tea on myself, okay? And this tea is hot, alright? So just be prepared. This is one of the most embarrassing stories that I have, probably, that's art related. And I'm gonna tell it today because I learned one of the biggest lessons ever in my art career. This circumstance taught me one of the biggest lessons ever. But before I jump into that story, I just would like to take a second to say that if you would like to see a slowed down version of this video so that you can get a closer look at my process with additional instructional commentary, you can visit my Patreon page at patreon.com/monsterpawss. The link is always in the description. Okay, let's get into the story. I just want to start off by saying I think I was a senior in high school, and that means I was probably either 17 or 18. I knew absolutely nothing about copyright or property or anything like that. All I knew was that I liked to draw. At the time, I was into hyperrealism. I liked to make graphite portraits of real people, and I wanted it to be almost indiscernible from a photograph. So, of course, I drew from photographs a lot, and I also drew from life. Anyway, so there is a competition here in my state, and in this competition, kids of all ages from all over the state in different regions come together in basically a giant juried art show and compete to win some spots in a state art show. This was the first year that I had ever done this competition, and I was so excited because not only was it the first year that I had done this competition, but it was the first year that our school had been entered into this competition, and it was a big deal. So I don't know if other states have UIL programs, but this was basically the UIL for fine arts in Texas. And it's a big deal for your school because if you win, then you get like rewards, and I think there was like money involved for your school, but I'm not sure. Basically, you just get recognition. So it would have been awesome for us to advance to the state level, just being our first year here in this competition, being able to win an award. So I spent weeks upon weeks working on this drawing that I was going to enter into the competition. At the time, my favorite subjects to draw were celebrities. And as a lot of you guys know, I'm a huge fan of Lady Gaga, and at the time, Born This Way was poppin', like it was huge, and her video had just come out, and that was the first time I had ever laid eyes on Zombie Boy, aka Rick Gnest. So I made a portrait of him using a photograph that I found online. Okay, you can see where this is going. So with this being our first year entering this art show, I was ready to go. I knew I was going to advance to the state level, bitch. I was going to win. Nobody was going to stop me. I was very, very competitive, and I still am very competitive, which is why I feel like YouTube is a good thing for me. Not that YouTube is a competition or anything, but it's just good to have peers that are around your same level, which I did not have in school. So I was very, very headstrong in the fact that I wanted to win this fucking competition, and nobody was going to not let me win. So I worked for months on this portrait. The criteria the judges were looking for were skill involved, creativity, and underlying meaning, I think, was what they were judging on. So I came up with this amazing portrait, and I still, to this day, I have mixed feelings about it because of this, what happened, but I still think it's a good portrait in terms of skills, but as far as originality goes, not so much. I'll insert a picture of it right here. So the day of the competition comes. I'm here, I'm ready to go. It's the regional competition, so we take a field trip. It's me and like 19 other students, and we go like 2 hours away to another school to do our regional part of the competition. So when we get in, basically we have to check in. So we have to like write our names down. We have to get a sticker that says what school we're from, and then we have to enter our art. So whenever we bring it up to the table, there's like people sitting there, and then they look at your art and they touch it to make sure that it's like sealed and sprayed right. We get to this table, and I put my art down, and the guy checking me in is like, wow, did you draw this? And I was like, yeah. So right off the bat, I knew this was gonna be, you know, a good day, or I felt like it was. So after you register, they give you a time slot, and mine was at like 11:30. So I had to wait like 2.5 hours before my interview with the judge. So that sounds weird. It sounds like I'm getting arrested. Anyway, I just want to paint a picture of the waiting process because it's almost like that anxiety that you have before a job interview. So, a few kids are crying, but for the most part, everybody's having a good time. They're talking with each other. Kids are making friends with each other from other schools who like their art, and all around it's a really good experience. So my time comes around, I go and I have my interview, and long story short, my judge was really impressed with my drawing and she gave me the highest score possible. So that meant that I was going to be advancing to the state level, and I was super excited about that. Me and one other kid were going to the state level out of the 19 that entered. So a month later, it's time for the state competition, and I am hyped. I'm ready to go. It was in a town that was like a 5-hour drive, and it just so happened that our senior prom was also the same night as the state competition. So the other kid decided not to go, and it was just me and my art teacher. When we attended the show, while our art was being judged, we got to attend events. There were certain events that you were assigned to go to. So I went to a figure drawing class, a color theory class, and they weren't like boring classes where you just like sit there and get lectured. It was awesome, and overall my experience there was great up until it was time to go and see where your art had placed. So I think there was like 4 different divisions. There was division 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if you were division 4, that meant that it was like superior and that your art would be chosen to be featured in this art show that would travel across the state. So I walk into this gym in this high school. It's huge and it's filled with rows and rows and rows of art from all over the state. I start at the entrance, which starts with the Division 1 drawings, which are the ones that didn't really meet the criteria of the judge. So as I'm walking through, I'm looking for my art, so I pass through the Division 1 row and the Division 2 row, and then I get to the Division 3 row, and I'm looking for my art, and I'm like, okay, so if it's not in the Division 3 row, then that means it's going to be in the Division 4 row, and that means that my art has been like chosen. It is like the chosen one, and it gets to go with like 20 other pieces into this show and be like featured into this art show, and it's gonna be great, and I'll get like $100 scholarship or something. I go through the Division 3 row and into the Division 4 row, and I'm looking for my art, and I don't see it. And I'm like, where's it at? So I go back through, I do a double check, and I go back through all of the rows just to make sure that I didn't miss it. And I'm like, okay, so it's not here. So I'm a little bit concerned at this point. And I'm like, oh my god, what happened? Like, where is it at? And so I meet back up with my teacher at our car in the parking lot, and she has this look on her face that says something just not good happened. So I get in the car, and she looks at me and says that basically I have been disqualified because my drawing contained copywritten material. My heart dropped. It was like the most horrifying, shameful, embarrassing feeling that I could possibly ever feel. Like, just thinking about it right now makes me want to just curl up in a ball and like just never get out of bed. I was like, what? No words. Not only was this our first year in this competition, but it was my last time being able to enter this competition because I was a senior in high school, so I would be graduating, and I made us look like fucking idiots. After I finished picking up my pride and dignity off the ground in the parking lot, it was time to go and pick up my disqualified piece of art. I went with my teacher and we met up with this lady, and I'm not sure if she was the director of this entire program or not, but she pulled my teacher to the side, and like the entire time while they were talking, my teacher's back was turned towards me and she was facing my teacher, so I had a clear shot of her face. And the entire time she was talking to my teacher, she was just like giving me these glances like, you disgusting piece of shit, how dare you do this? Like, I just felt like the most awful piece of shit ever. Not only was I disqualified that day, but I was also an hour and a half late to prom. But that's a different story. The point that I want to make with this video is, don't think that you can use a reference photo and put your own spin on it and then call it your own. Because that's essentially what I did. 80% of this photo was copied from a photograph, and then the top part of the skull was like from my head. And I thought that that would be sufficient enough to enter into this contest, but I was completely wrong about that. And as an effect, I learned my lesson about reference photos and how to properly utilize a reference photo. Just because you change up a certain aspect of a photo or a piece of art and then put your own spin on it doesn't mean that it is your piece of art. You can't take credit for it, which is what I essentially did. I, at the time, didn't think that there was a problem with it, and I was very ignorant to the fact that this is basically plagiarism. That's basically what I was disqualified for, was plagiarism. To put it simply, if this was a writing competition and I had just copied somebody's writing and like put my own spin on it without much changing of anything, then it would be considered plagiarism. So I was very ignorant to the fact, as I think a lot of people are, that plagiarism really is a serious thing and it should be taken seriously. At the time, I thought it was suitable to just, as long as I changed up something about it, it would be fine. It would be considered not plagiarism and it would be original. And that's not how it works. And I found out the hard way. But I'm telling this story, this embarrassing story, so that hopefully you guys don't follow in the same footsteps, because I've heard other stories that are similar to this. And this whole situation could have been so much worse. Like, if this was me doing this now, being my career, this would be a career-ending thing to rip somebody's artwork off or somebody's photo. So I'm glad that I learned this in my amateur stages and not whenever I'm trying to make this a livable source of income. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, enjoyed this story time. If you would like more story times, don't forget to smack that ass on that like button so I know. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, and Snapchat. All the links are in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching. You can also subscribe. We do art things. Alright you guys, I will see you in the next video, and remember, don't quit your daydream.